Good neighbors, what's going on? It's Phil Russert. This is Creatorcon Q&A, episode 145. And I know we've been doing a few sporadic shows, but every time, we have an opportunity to hang out with some cool creators, I love to do the show. And tonight we have two really cool creators that have worked together many times, and they've been around for a while. And I had the great pleasure of backing their first book, of which we're going to talk about the follow-up today, which was really good. And it's a great take on some classics. So very interesting, very different. And I have to tell you, we keep clamoring for new and fresh ideas, but we keep throwing our money at the crapola. So here tonight, we have a book that is really, it's new, fresh ideas. It's thinking outside the box. It's entertaining. It's quality. So come hang out with us. We're going to look at the campaign, and you can even catch up and get the old one, I'm sure, one way or the other. And we're going to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce everybody. First, we have writer, creator, Stephen Perros.
Hello, Phil. Thanks so
What's
much
going
for
on?
having us. All good things are going on, sir. All good things.
Good, and we're going to get right into it. And of course, we have artist extraordinaire, Mr. Barry Orkin, the Orkin Man.
No more accurate introduction has ever been leveled on a man. Artist extraordinaire for sure.
I do have to say, I think you're a very underrated artist. I don't know if you get enough credit, Barry. I love your work. You do fantastic work.
Thank you. How kind of you to say.
And I've had the great pleasure of having you as a guest at my conventions, too.
That's right. So, always enjoyable time there as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll get back to that eventually. Everything's been crazy right now, right? We're doing what we can to add to the creative spark that is the indie community.
There's Barry's cover for our first book, Stoker Wells, Order of the Golden Dawn. Barry did all of the for the people who are tuning in. Barry did all of the inks, pencil and inks for the inside, but for the front cover and the back cover, Barry not only did the pencil inks, he did the coloring as well, which you could see Barry's talent in both departments, in all these departments. He's a master of. The only thing he hasn't done is letter for me, damn it.
I'm working on that.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right.
Just plugging it. I'm just figuring that out too,
Yeah, the rendering on there that you do. I mean, just showing the wrinkles in the face and just beautiful work, man. Very detailed, very, very realistic. And I love that style. It kind of, you're more detailed, but it brings me back to the old, Tarzan and everything, like when Joe Kubert was doing those, those tales, and but with even more details. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, I could flip through some pages at some point for sure. We'll tell people a little bit about the book, and then it'll make a little bit more sense as we flip through.
Before we get into the books, let us get a little background on you guys. We'll start with Stephen, and then we'll go over to Barry. Just give us a little background on you, where you come from, what you've been doing,
Yeah, well, I know this guy, Barry Orkin, since 7th grade, first day of junior high school, as I do know my other comic book collaborator, Billy Tucci. Barry and I all went to Peter J. Brennan Junior High School in North Babylon, New York, on Long Island, which... is no longer there. No, Long Island and North Babylon is, but I think Peter J. Brennan is not. We have been friends and first collaborators, advisors over the years, and it's a thrill to be working on this. I went to NYU. I'm a filmmaker. I've sold movies and TV shows to networks and studios. Some of the things people might know me from, I wrote a film that Spider-Man's Kirsten Dunst starred in, called The Cat's Meow, a Lionsgate film for the great director Peter Bogdanovich. I did a Christmas movie for Lifetime starring Dolly Parton that I produced and wrote, called A Country Christmas Story. I've written Billy Tucci's Return of the Warrior trilogy, which I'm proud to say Billy has collectively with his 3 campaigns for the trilogy grossed over $1 million from the fans. And I'm honored to be a part of that legacy of And we're going to be returning to the saga that we began this year. Billy and I are already talking about it. Before I started working with Billy on She, I had a screenplay called Stoker and Wells, Order of the Golden Dawn, and that was something that I had as a screenplay. It got me some work. It was an expensive film to make, so the film didn't get made. And part of what I did, why I intersected with Barry, was it was suggested to turn it into some other form of IP, intellectual property. And so I thought, well, a graphic novel, it would be perfect for a graphic novel. I'd never written one. I surrounded myself with comic book creators, writers, artists. So it's always good to be the dumbest person in the room. So I went to those people and I said, why don't you guys all, I want to learn from you. That's how, and then I reverse engineered my screenplay with the help of my editor, J.C. Vaughn, Jeff Vaughn, which a lot of you know. And we turned my screenplay into the script for a graphic novel, and there was one and only one choice to draw it, and that was Barry. So that's how he and I
think you would first ask me to just do the logo, right? Because you were pitching it.
Yeah, I think even before I was doing it as a graphic novel, because we were trying to get the sense of this big tentpole movie, this series of films. At that time, when I wrote the screenplay, Pirates of the Caribbean was still very real. The Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. films were very real and active. I thought Stoker and Wells sort of would be the next, and still believe that. So Barry created that awesome logo that you can find on coffee mugs. Hello, 11-ounce coffee mugs for your hot cocoa on the East Coast this winter.
Which, by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
Barry did the logo for Creatorcon when I launched my show again, and I still have something I plan on sending him. I keep forgetting, but I haven't forgotten you, Barry.
But I've basically been a storyteller of all forms. I was in films. I've worked for studios, Disney, Paramount, Lionsgate. I've worked for networks like AMC. I've sold pilots to NBC and MTV one-hour dramas. I have plays that have been performed in 8 countries around the world that are under license. I just love telling stories, and so graphic novels became the next place for me to tell a story.
I don't think it's not too hard a transition, right? I mean, because scripts aren't too, movie scripts aren't too far from comic scripts, and then you've got storyboarding artists for a lot of time.
So it's very akin to storyboarding. One of the things you learn right away is that, one of the craft things that you learn as a screenwriter is economy. As a screenwriter. And so when you go over to graphic novels, boy, do you have to learn economy. What is that single image that you can create that further tells the story? The first thing you learn is that there's no such thing as a lot of first-time writers will say, in this panel, takes his hat off and puts it on the table. You don't have action. There's no. What is the image? Is it this? Or is it a hand on a table? What are we drawing? And so I learned that through the trial and error, through the process. And then I kind of really honed it when I worked on the 3 Billy books, because there I was, the 3 She books, there I wasn't reverse engineering a screenplay and cutting and paring it down. There I was actually writing graphic novel script, as I am doing for this sequel. So it's been quite an experience. So much so I'm being asked to teach it at the college that I teach film and TV writing. They want me to teach graphic novel and comic book writing, and I'm like, me? Okay.
Hey, cool. And Barry, how's it been working with Steve all these years? I mean, you guys are friends, so at least there's that comfort level. Mm-hmm. But how, with him adjusting to script writing for a graphic novel, obviously you have experience as a sequential artist. Did you kind of have to help him with hey, I can't do these 3 movements in this one panel, or did he get it all together and everything was smooth? Or
yeah, sometimes my sketches I would change what he's doing a little bit and then try to explain myself later on. I would never do anything too radical. I thought generally it was very smooth. Generally, you're not gonna. I mean, it was so many pages, 90+ pages, so you're not gonna agree on every single panel or every single page. But we got through everything pretty smoothly.
It's interesting you say that, Barry, because the first time around, I remember my guidance to you, because you had done some wonderful books already, was this is, I'm going to send you my script. And if you look at it and say, I can do this in a different form and improve on it, by all means, do that in the thumbnail. But the only thing is, if I said this happens on 12, try to make it happen on 12 and not on 12, 13, and 14, because it's a budget issue. And this time I'm more specific, even in in the script that we have in the 3 sample pages. I'm more specific this time around than I was then. Still giving Barry the leeway to come back to me with an alternate version. There was 1 or 2 times in our previous book, Order of the Golden Dawn, where Barry said, "Yeah, that's not a panel, that's a page," and he was absolutely right. Yeah. And he only brought that kind of stuff up when he really felt it wasn't just an apples and oranges thing. It was no, it's not going to work that way, and it's going to work much better.
And
he was right.
Yeah, I would always say to Steve, look, I did it my way. If you want to trash this, if you just want to start over, no problem. Don't worry about it. I just went with my.
See, I think that's how the best creative output comes out. Is there's no ego. Your ego is putting out the best book possible. It's not about I'm the writer or I'm the artist, it's my way. It's whatever serves the story best. And this is interesting because this story, it's a period piece. It's set at a specific time and it's in the past. So you had to do research and study what the architecture was, what the clothing styles were. Yeah. And as a writer, you have to how they spoke. I mean, you have to people don't think of these things because obviously they're not going to use slang that you would hear today. This is a long time ago. So I read the first one. I think you guys did a beautiful job. And I really enjoyed the whole take of the story. I mean, Bram Stoker, H.G. Wells, 2 of the most famous writers with 2 classic stories. And the way you threw them together and the way you kind of retold The Time Machine, which is one of my favorites. I remember watching the movie as a kid before I even got into the book. That was the first thing I saw. And it was just clever. And I think we're losing this a lot right now in mainstream because they're trying to play it safe with the same regurgitated crap, that we really need to start supporting these kind of projects because they're outside the box, they're reinventing the wheel, and they're interesting. So before we get into the campaigns, Stephen, tell us about Stoker and Wells, the first book, and give people a little background so they can understand what they're in for.
Well, Stoker and Wells imagines a 20-something screw-up named H.G. Wells meeting a disgruntled 40-something theater manager named Bram Stoker, which is exactly who both of these men were in 1894, and how these 2 men, 2 different generations, wind up meeting and going on an unexpected horror sci-fi time-traveling adventure that winds up leading to the creative inspiration for both writers' first great work, The Time Machine for H.G. Wells and Dracula for Bram Stoker. And that's our story. That's our premise. It involves the subtitle on that is Stoker and Wells' Order of the Golden Dawn. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a very real, secretive organization in Victorian London, where people studied everything from the tarot to mysticism. It involved, for Victorian England, it actually involved all genders, all races. It basically, if you had something to say and you were from somewhere interesting, you were a part of it. Even though books have been written about it, there's a lot of mystery surrounding it and its membership, which, of course, a dramatist can take great advantage of. And so that's the sort of launching pad for how this story begins. But it was fascinating for me to research. You say the research is where you get your toolbox. That's without the research to know that Wells in his 20s had just kind of screwed up his college career. He's already married and divorced. He couldn't keep down a job. He had degrees as a pharmacist, a chemist, a draper. He couldn't get his stuff together. Had big issues with authority, and he. But once he hit that stride with the Time Machine, bam, was he prolific until the end of his life. Bam, bam, bam. I mean, the books he churned out. Stoker, again, that's what made them great as a team. for someone who's writing. You don't want a team, and if you look at all your favorite buddy films, your favorite romantic stories, they're never two identical people. That creates no conflict, and that's not interesting. The old joke, the old tradition of the odd couple, one's sloppy, one's neat, one loves opera, one loves sports, makes a lot of sense because they're always in conflict, and conflict creates drama, conflict creates comedy. So Stoker is he'd already been a 16-year veteran of being a theater manager for a very, very esteemed actor who ran the Lyceum Theater, Henry Irving, who was soon to become Sir Henry Irving, all the while scribbling his own stories. He had been a critic as well. That's how he first got on. Bram Stoker was Irish, and he was born in Dublin, went to Dublin, I forget the famous university where Oscar Wilde went. They knew each other. And then he was brought by, he had reviewed a play that Henry Irving was in while touring. And he said, why don't you come run my theater? And he did, and he was about 15 years into running it when my story begins. Married, had a teenage son, in a rocky relationship, which we get to actually deal with in the second book. Because our book, the first book, very much, they're in Victorian England at the beginning, and boom, they're in 5894 for the majority of the book, and just until the end when they come back. Well, now they are back. They're in Victorian England, but they have brought some things back with them. Things from the future. There are things now that they have almost activated in the present. And we also continue that tradition that we've done in the first book, which is the books and the actions of the book inspire the stories to come. In the first one, Time Machine, certainly Time Machine continues. And in the second one, we see the inspirations for The Invisible Man as well.
Oh, cool.
Which becomes very organic to the story.
Yeah, in the first one, the two toughest things you can do are pacing of a story, in a comic book especially, and the playing the characters off of each other in a way that engages the reader, right? And you coming to a different medium, you pulled it off very well. The pacing was fantastic, and it is a buddy story, like the buddy cop kind of story. At the end of the day, it's the two conflicting personalities and how they clash, and at the same time how they form a respect for each other through these adventures and grow from each other in the different ways. And yes, it did bring in some humor as well, and I was really impressed and enjoyed the first book. So having said that, as far as the artwork, how was it for you, Barry? Victorian England is a lot of architectural differences, and you have to go through the paces of studying.
Right. Well, yeah.
How was that for you?
You mentioned it. A lot of research, a lot of photos that I had to grab, a lot of costume, and which I love to do. It's a labor of love. It was very hard to do. I love the 19th century, but I really enjoyed doing it. One thing I found out during the course of this book, I realized, instead of having all this paper around me, I was doing printouts and having like literally all around me. I discovered that for the iPad, it's worth the price just for reference for an artist.
Sure.
To be able
you swipe like this and you go to each.
I have everything in a Dropbox, and Dropbox is excellent. You just open your folder and you'll see all your little thumbnails, and I could just instantly click to all the different spots, and it made the job so much easier. Not that it wasn't easy, but
now, did you do character designs before going into production of sequential work, doing the roughs? Did you go over and to make sure the clothing was accurate, etc.?
Yeah, I did a lot of the character art, and for example, for Dracula, I'm calling him Dracula, but soft pencil, just really wispy kind of soft pencil drawings. When you got a nice soft pencil, you could draw really fast and just get more almost like a fashion kind of a drawing.
Right.
For Nina, for whoever, and you're getting the face right, you're getting the general body shape right. A little bit, it's a caricature a little bit too. It's not that natural looking, and we didn't have to go through too many rounds or anything. I did do a lot of sketches, but we weren't really, not really. We honed in on something pretty quickly,
Yeah, we did that. Particularly with the two leads, Stoker and Wells. How are we going to depict them? How much are we going to lean into the comic book tropes of the physicality and the attractiveness? Where's the middle line? Because part of what as you saw from some of those images and how much research Barry did, I really felt that the strength of the book was going to be if I lived up to the ad line that I said on the back, which is the absolutely true story of Bram Stoker and H.G. Wells, give or take 48 hours. Because I wanted the two men to be who they were at that time. I wanted the world to be what it looked like at that time, the details of their lives. I don't want to make them richer, poorer, meaner, in the middle of something they might not. So that when they did meet and go on this adventure and they go 58, 94, that's our fantasy. And that we're always anchored in this reality of the past. So I wanted if people looked up what these two guys looked like at the time, that yes, these are our versions for the book, but it's not like you can't imagine that this is Bram Stoker, and this is H.G. Wells.
Yeah, I'm actually, before we get to the campaign too, I'm going to show you, where is it? I have it here somewhere. Somebody message. Oh, there we go. This is the original pencils to the book from Barry. Hang on one second.
Yeah, I think it's his cover.
Yeah,
this is Barry's cover of our new book.
And these are the original pencils, just to show everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the detail. That's beautiful.
Yeah, Barry we have that up as one of our perks on Indiegogo. Obviously, it's one of a kind. If it does not sell on Indiegogo, we will be moving it over, obviously, to Kickstarter. We're giving Indiegogo people a first shot at this campaign, which is live now.
Very cool. And then we have the Teen Sensation helping out here.
That's right. We have Billy Tucci, who's doing a variant cover. He did a variant cover for book 1, which similarly we did as a limited edition. We did 100 first time around. We're doing 150 of this one, and it's selling very well. And we have this original art, this original pencil art. Billy will sign and ship. Plus, it comes if you buy the art, you also get the book and various other perks as well. Again, if this does not sell, which I'm surprised it has not, because the last time we put Billy's art up for pretty much a similar price, one of his people bought it. I will say that was on Kickstarter, not Indiegogo. So I'm kind of excited to go to the next phase, which we'll talk about. We were talking about it in the pre-show, but we'll chat with your fans about Indiegogo versus Kickstarter, the process, how do you do both? How do you do them effectively? What's the philosophy? But I'm excited to move this and Barry's art over to Kickstarter if it does not sell on Indiegogo. But yeah,
cool.
Billy,
so here we
I just want to say, just like Billy did with the first cover, if you can put the camera back on me a second, just like Billy did with his first cover, he thought, well, let Barry do Stoker and Wells, and I'll do your females. So for our first cover, and talk about Barry, we mentioned doing different designs. When Billy did Nina, Billy did a cover featuring our character Nina, who is an Eloy. For those of you who know H.G. Wells, the Time Machine, they are sort of the hobbits of the world of H.G. Wells. This was an early design. And then we changed her design to look more like this. But the train had already left the station. Billy had already drawn this, so we figured, okay, well, this is a rare glimpse of Billy working off of one of our early designs of Nina, and doing it in the style of Muka, who was the art doing this Art Nouveau of the period. If it looks familiar, imagine the Moet Chandon champagne bottles. So Billy said, I'll do your female lead in this design, which is similar, which is why he chose. I pitched to him. I said, "Why don't you do Nina fighting our female vampire, which happens in the later part of the book? This way, you're going to do a woman, two powerful women on your cover. Barry's doing. We still have one of the women on the cover, as you can see in Barry's. But again, let's go to the campaign. I'm excited. You had it up. Let's get it back up.
It's also good to play to strengths, right? Billy is great at drawing women. That's
Yeah. Let the covers not be competing with each other. They complement each other very well.
So Stoker Wells, The Ashes of Revenge. It's a 60-page sequel to the hit graphic novel being developed as a TV show, and we're going to get into that shortly. We have 11 days left in the campaign. So tell us, you briefly touched on it, but tell us about the campaign. And, we know what the first one entailed. You said this one they bring some things back with them from their time traveling. So as much as you could elaborate without spoiling, let us know. What's going on?
It picks up almost very, very soon after it left off. I said that the first book was the creative inspiration, but as it turns out, Wells in particular is having a little bit of writer's block. Stoker, who just took forever to get to write, it took him, he didn't publish Dracula until 1897. Our story starts in 1893 or 1894. And he realizes he misses Nina, the Eloy, and he wants to go back. Now, that time machine that they used was a stolen time machine that they left where they found it. Our antagonist, our nemesis in the book, is a fellow named Silas Embleton, who is from the Order of the Golden Dawn and has created a time machine. Our two intrepid heroes use it, go to the future, have their adventure, meet the sort of surrogate Dracula, meet the Eloy and Morlocks of the time machine. The stories are sort of fused. It works whether or not you've read Dracula and the Time Machine. It has an extra level of enjoyment if you have or are familiar with even the movies, the movie versions. But when they came back, again, without spoilers, they came back with some people, beings, and things from that world, which are now going to be a part. And we hint a little bit at it in the 3-page preview, has them returning to that lab, returning to that time machine. Prior to this, a dreadful, horrific blood ceremony took place, potentially reviving a certain famous vampire. And now Wells, unlike our first book where Stoker and Wells both sat in that time machine, in this page, it is Wells alone who goes back to the future, as we say, or forward to the past, whatever you want to call it, back to 5894, because he realizes he misses and loves Nina, the Eloy, and wants to bring her, or convince her to come back with him, which won't be easy, by the way. Mind you, here is our surrogate Dracula on the left. And if you're wondering, well, this looks like a sort of strange, bizarro world version of the man in front standing behind him, well, you would be right, because one of the things we toy with is the idea, can time travel actually result in two of the same beings being in the same place at the same time? That's often a conundrum we find in a lot of time travel stories. If I travel back to when I was a baby, will the baby disappear and I have taken its place, or vice versa? And of course, we answer the question here as this image teases, that perhaps two different versions of Dracula can exist in the same place at the same time. This last two panels you're looking at hint at our Invisible Man storyline. Why else would a man be walking around, respectable man be walking around Victorian London naked? Well, that's because maybe prior to this he was invisible and it's wearing off. So there is a little, you mentioned the humor in the first book, there is humor in this book as well. Although the best fusions of horror and comedy always work when you play the horror straight. And the horror will be played straight in this for sure.
Barry, where'd you get the references of my body? It's got the vertical smile going on there. So
now,
go ahead.
These are Barry's awesome designed, just obviously just for this for our fans, bookmarks. These are all images from the first book. From the cover, there's the time machine splash in the background of 3 of these. There's our Morlock, Wren, W-R-E-N. And if anyone says, why does that sound familiar? And you can think of, and you know Dracula and the character of Redfield, You'll understand why he is a crossover character that exists in both worlds. He's eating a centipede there. For those of you who remember Renfield from Dracula and may have seen the new version, he does enjoy dining out on insects. So Ren is a character in both books. There is Stoker and Barry's awesome image of Dracula. There's our heroine Nina, and then working right to left, because apparently I've become Japanese. There is Stoker, and then there is Wells.
You really think so? Turning Japanese, you really think so?
I think so. There's Barry's glorious mug, 11-ounce hot mug. I mean, it's
I thought you saw
two-sided.
his face for a minute there. His glorious mug.
It's glorious mug. That's right. And again, for those of you who buy merch and know mugs like this, they go for 19, 20, 24 bucks. Where I think we have it, we're selling it for $12 or $14, which is barely making a profit, but we'd rather it be on your desk than in boxes in my home. So anything you have out there that has our logo means you're showing it to the world, and that's something that's very special to us. And the mug is quite beautiful. We also have a limited edition Nina print, an 11x17 print of that back cover image that Barry did. He all personally signed by Barry, all individually numbered. I think we have 35 left that we have as part of the perks here, and of course we'll have on the Kickstarter when that launches as well.
Very cool. And here's the team, the dynamic duo.
Mm-hmm. And we are, as you said, as you mentioned to the viewers, we are there. There is perk levels, and then on Kickstarter reward levels, where we're not only selling the first book, the second book, the new book, Stoker and Wells, The Ashes of Revenge, but you can also get both books. You can get a PDF of the first book. There is a 3-page recap at the top of Stoker and Wells, Ashes of Revenge, so that no one will be lost when they start reading it if they just get the one book. There is a recap, so you'll be brought up to speed as to what happened in book one, or you can also just get book one as well and have them side by side in your collection.
Well, I recommend it. I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm also a completionist. I couldn't stand, that's like starting on chapter 2, just buying book 2. You really should get them both together. That's my opinion.
Oh,
that's an unbiased opinion.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Here's some of Barry's background. We actually, I talked so much, we missed the part of the show where Barry tells us a little bit about himself. There's a little bit of Barry's bio. He's worked with Billy as well, as you can see. He's worked with the great Gary Cohen. He drew a book for Gary of Blue Devil and Amethyst. He's done a lot of branding work, right, Barry? I mean, we could talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I worked on the first 3 issues of She. I did various things. I colored, I did some inking assists. And then I've been doing a lot of Billy's design work for, years, a long time. The logo designs, and, I did the logo, Zombie Sama, I did that logo, and I did other logo. He put out a book called Tomo that, I did that logo in various.
Didn't you do the Crusade?
The Crusade logo. Yeah.
The Crusade logo,
yes.
Billy's, since the 90s, it's been out there, your logo. Right. It's a gorgeous logo. We have
the original one, and there's like a Crusade Japan. I did that one, and others, other versions. Yeah.
I did not know that. So here's our team as well. Barry's doing pencil and inks. Colors are these great guys at a team named the Studio House out of South America that just a wonderful team that we brought on. They did the first book. They did the second half of the first book, and we're bringing them on to do the whole book. They did the coloring, as you can see, on those 3 pages as well. Mindy Lopkin, who does all of Billy Tucci's lettering. I had such a good relationship with her during the process of doing those 3 books that I asked her to do this one, and she's just great. I love her work ethic. Her instincts are terrific. And J.C. Vaughn, who just had a great campaign and a great second book, Al Capone Vampire.
Yeah.
which some of you know and or pledged or have copies of the first one. He just did a campaign for the second one. The first one was awesome, and I'm very excited to get the second one from him as well. So yeah, we're looking to raise about 21.5. If we could raise more, that would be great. 21.5 allows us to do this book right, pay everybody what they should be paid, ship it the way it should be shipped, print it the way it should be printed. Certainly not a large number in the scope of things in terms of what it takes to do a book. You know that as well as anybody, Phil. We can do it. We're not stuck if we don't make that amount. But that's what we're looking to raise, and I think we will between the two campaigns.
Now, how much of the book has been produced so far?
We are the book will the book will ideally ship in November. We took a little hiatus after to rev up the campaign, but now Barry and I are back in production. So we've gotten the covers, we've got the script. The script is about, I would say, 75. It would be about 50% detailed panel treatment, meaning it summarizes, and then about half of it is actual script. So now what I'm doing is now we're funneling through the pages to Barry, and we're back on the process. But the book will be delivered to people calendar 2023.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's go over some of the tiers you have here. You've got book 2 for $25, and again, this is a big book. This isn't a regular floppy.
Yep. It's 60 pages. It'll be, it's got a spine. It's a beautiful book. We went to a terrific printer. Anyone who held our first book in their hands knows this is not some print on demand cheap jack version the ink's gonna come off on your fingertips. It's a beautifully made book. Every copy will be. Barry and I live on separate coasts. So unless Barry was going to hop on a plane and come here to ship all the books to him and then ship them to me, it's going to be cost prohibitive. So I will definitely sign all copies of the book. If you're on the East Coast, Barry does make appearances at different conventions. Of course, he will sign it in person. If you should purchase it in the campaign, you'll get it signed by me. I'm in Los Angeles. And then, of course, you can bring it to Barry. He'll sign. Of course, there's always a possibility Barry may come west.
Yeah, I'll be back in LA. I'll be back in LA before long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe if we could coordinate it somewhere between when the books arrive at my doorstep and before they're shipped out, perhaps we can have the fans will get something they didn't bargain for, both signatures.
Will you guys be at San Diego again this year?
I will.
got to see you guys last year.
Yeah, I will be there. Barry, are you are you coming or no?
I am not sure yet. That is, there's a couple of things going on. I'm juggling a few things, so I'm not sure yet.
Well, I am on 2 panels this year. One of them I'm sort of running and a participant on. They've approved it every year. I've pitched it for basically between that here and WonderCon. I think this will be the 5th time I'm doing the same panel, which is adapting great books and TV shows to comics. And so we have a terrific panel. I'm going to obviously be talking about adapting Dracula and the Time Machine and these iconic characters. We have J.C. Vaughn and Mark Haynes talking about doing Battlestar Galactica and Stargate. We have David Avalone doing everything from Doc Savage to The Twilight Zone. And now he's been doing Elvira, all these wonderful, really smart Elvira comics. So we're going to have a fun panel talking about that. And then I'm also on Billy. That's going to be on Friday evening, 5:00 at San Diego. And then on Sunday, I'm doing a She panel, The Return of the Warrior, where with Billy Tucci and some people associated with She over the years, we'll be talking about all things She. Its roots, the 3 books Billy and I put out, and what's coming. So that'll be on Sunday at San Diego, and I'm looking very much forward to that. So yes, I will have a presence there as well. And our book, our Kickstarter will be going on. So I will probably have cards printed up with a QR code so people can take it and maybe get an extra treat if they happen to pledge during Comic-Con. We'll throw a couple of Comic-Con exclusives into the envelope for them.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
So on
Oh,
the tiers,
yeah.
you also have a PDF for $10. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to clutter up your home, or
Mm-hmm.
if you just budget's tight, you don't have to miss out. For $10, you get 60 pages of story.
Which, as anybody knows who does their own research, that's an extraordinarily good price for a
Yep.
digital download of a book. I don't even know why I'm selling it that cheap. I'm silly. I'm just silly.
You were just in a
No,
silly mood.
usually it
That's
would
all.
be at least 15 or more dollars for a
I
PDF of
know.
that size. Yeah.
I just decided let's do 10 for the book two, and if you want book one and two, it's 20. So that's what we're doing with that. It won't be that way when after we're done, because yeah, when after we're done and we have it on in other outlets, we will be charging more commercially once the campaign is behind us, Comixology and so forth, all that kind of stuff. We have our mug again, $12, insanely low price for that mug. Here is books one and two as PDF. By the way, here you get to see what Barry kind of thinking along this motif with his colors, this sort of monochromatic style he did with the covers just really pops so beautifully when you see the books side by side. I just really love what he's done with the gold in the first one and the red in the second, and it's just a great companion pieces. But here's the two PDFs. Below that we have. You can get for $30, $5 more than buying the physical book. You get your book plus the PDF, plus the set of 5 glossy, beautiful bookmarks.
Wow. So $5 is getting you the PDF and the 5 bookmarks, basically.
Yeah, which is a sweet deal that people have claimed already. And then, of course, here's just buying the physical copies of books 1 and 2. As well, which speaks for itself. Again, I think I love the physical media. I don't enjoy comics and graphic novels nearly as much on a
I agree.
on a screen as I do in my hands. Here's
The
Barry.
smell of a book, the
Yeah,
tangibility of it, the
yeah,
bright, vibrant colors are better on
yeah,
the page.
yeah.
And just, I feel, look, studies show that you enjoy something more with the more senses that you use.
Mm-hmm.
And holding a physical book, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, your sight. So you're using more senses by holding the book, which makes it just psychologically a greater enjoyment of that product. So I'm all for the physical personally.
Hey, listen, there was a myth going on for a while as bookstores were closing. Oh, people don't want to read anymore. People don't like books. Everyone must want to read stuff on digitally. But that's actually not true. Bookstores closing is just a result of things are just all commerce is easier to buy things on, name it, Amazon on down. But actually, the sales of physical books has betrayed the naysayers. In fact, I think there was one year, a couple of years ago, that it went up as opposed to stabilizing or going down. Generations reject the previous generations. That's why headphones now are huge once again, because they reject the previous generations. Oh, my dad walks around, he's reading everything on his Kindle. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go get a physical book. So it's great to see people do still love physical media.
Yeah, I mean, comics tried to go digital. They tried to go all digital, save themselves the print run expenses, etc., and it didn't hold. I mean, it became a supplemental part of the industry, but
Mhm,
I don't think it's like original art, right? You're never going
mhm,
to replace that physical original piece, whether it's the book, the art, whatever the case may be. Me
mhm.
personally, I could just sit there and open a book and smell it for 5 minutes before I read it, and my wife thinks I'm crazy.
Sure.
Unfortunately,
Um,
we still also have the experience of walking into a comic book store and being able to open up the books and look
right.
at them. And I really miss used bookstores. I really miss that. There used to be a couple near me, went out of business, but it was so great to just be able to thumb through the volumes and figure out if you want it or not, and just kind of drink it all in.
I
Especially a
love.
really good.
Yeah, I mean, I like that Rafael Tavares has mentioned that that small book we small bookstores have had a resurgence. I'm glad it sounds like he's got one open somewhere, so I'm glad to hear it. I love going into used bookstores.
Excellent.
And there are those ones whenever we visit certain towns, you go, oh, I got to go to that one, that place. And lots of times they're still there. And I just love how many young people are in them. Used bookstores are not places where you walk in and everybody is over, 70. Used bookstores, I walk in, I to this day, as you all know, you walk in, everybody's in their 20s and 30s, and the teenagers, walking
just
in.
going to Barnes and Nobles, they're sitting all over around. Even in the comic area, they're sitting reading a graphic novel. Absolutely.
There's hope.
I miss Borders. I miss Borders. That was a great bookstore.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
So with the tiers, we've got the Tucci variant.
Yeah, we got the Tucci variant, which we have, which is we're selling. It says 7 out of 149 claim. The reason was I put it up as 150, but for some reason I goofed and didn't put in shipping. So once on Indiegogo, once someone buys one copy, there are certain things you can't change. I can't figure out why they would make shipping be one of the things you can't change, but that's the case. So I had to do it. I had to basically create a new one, hide the one that was bought. So essentially we've sold 8 out of 150, not 7 out of 149.
Right.
But so that was sold. I think we also sold a few on a few as well as an add-on. So we maybe sold about 10 of those at the 75 price point. Now this one, which I held up for everybody, as I say on the video, I went into the vault and pulled out the last 5 of the 100 that I have of Billy's Stoker and Wells variant cover. Same book inside, but his variant cover, and people are buying it. So we got, we only have 3 left. Whatever's left, I will port over to the Kickstarter when that starts. But if you want to make sure you get it, you want to get it here at our campaign. By the way, look at that gorgeous new cover there. That's the completed cover that Billy did, colored by Wes Hartman for his variant cover for Stoker and Wells, Ashes of Revenge. Again, he used the same idea for the background, the Mucha background of the Art Nouveau style. And now we have Nina in the correct wardrobe, fighting a female vampire who is, I don't want to spoil what character that is in the book, but it is one of our leads, and she becomes a vampire in the course of the story. And we have, and these 2 women will come into confrontation in our tale.
Very cool. And of course, here we have Barry's original art to the cover. Yes,
which is just so beautiful. We have that. For anybody who is in Canada or the UK, I have fixed this problem of the shipping for the future for the Kickstarter. In fact, I probably could change it on some of these other items that haven't been claimed yet here on the Indiegogo. I'll do that after the show. But yeah, Barry's art, it'll be signed, it'll be treated beautifully, it'll be shipped gloriously and immaculately to your door. And when this becomes a successful show, which we could talk about, and what is going on with this, and being developed by the former president of Marvel Studios, you'll want to have these editions. You'll want to have this original art. This is an excellent investment, if I do say so myself.
And then, of course, you've got Billy's cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever it was 4 years ago, we sold Billy's original art. His cover there was like within a day or 2 of the Kickstarter campaign for 800. So Billy said, "Oh, my art's going for more now," and Debbie's furious that because she doesn't want to sell any of his covers for under 1,000 because he gets it, as you know, Phil. But we're doing it for 900 here, and with it you get everything else. If you buy Barry's original art, Billy's original art, you also get the book, you also get the PDF. Again, you'll see the details of what you get when you click on it, but you get a lot of other You get all the 5 bookmarks. You get a wonderful package for buying the original art.
Excellent.
And then for
And you're gonna appear
$1,000,
in it too. Look at that.
now, again, on Kickstarter, we put 3 of these up, $1,000. You appear in the book. All 3 were claimed. So this is interesting for me, doing Indiegogo as the first stop. None of these have been claimed yet, so I'm looking forward to some people appearing in the book when we launch on Kickstarter. My experience with Indiegogo was, after the book was done, published, and out there, I opened an Indiegogo store. And so then it was immediate delivery. In fact, that was suggested to me by Billy Tucci. He said, "Why don't you do an Indiegogo?" I said, "But I have the book. I have the book in boxes. I got all my stuff." He says, "Yeah, but it's another audience to sell it to." And I said, "Oh, I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't thought of Indiegogo that way." So, I think we made another, I think it was a little over $6,000 opening an Indiegogo store of Stoker and Wells after the book was done, printed, and in the hands of the Kickstarter people.
Yeah, I hadn't gone to Indiegogo for a while, and I was actually talking to Billy today, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to Indiegogo." He's like, "You should go to Indiegogo. What are you doing?" So, yeah. So, I mean, it's not like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's been very successful. So
I know. He turned that corner with Return of the Warrior, and he hasn't looked like a lot of these guys, like Brian Pulido and so forth. He hasn't looked back. It was just, they make more going directly to the fans, less money lost via the middleman. And
well, it's good to see people like Billy, et cetera, putting out their IP again without the interference of any shareholders or big corporations. Like, it's just them, raw love, passion, the same way you're doing with Stoker and Wells. It's your love and your passion for the story, for the medium, for the characters. All the more reason to be supporting here. I'm not saying don't go support the big publishers, but if you want the passion play, you really need to come to these indie campaigns, because that's where you're going to find the creativity and the love pouring through the story. And there's no one pulling your strings telling you, "Oh, you have to make this person this, or you have to change that," there is none of that. You have total creative autonomy and freedom, and that just is the recipe for great storytelling.
Yeah, it is so true. When I wrote the screenplay, this is a screenplay for what's going to be, look at that gorgeous cover. Barry's, he and I talked a lot about, I went through a couple of different incarnations of the rough, of the, what the general sketch was going to be. Then Barry went off and did then when it was decided upon, we didn't talk about color. And then he came back with this, and he came back with 2 different choices in the same kind of sense of a monochromatic look. And they both just knocked me out. And it really lets the image, the drawing register when it's done this way. It's such a beautiful, beautiful color choice. And to me, it's very striking what he did with this cover, Barry.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, and a nice companion piece to a very different color philosophy for the variant cover by Billy and Wes Hartman. So it's a cool pair to have.
Would say, colors. People underestimate colors. They think, "Oh, it just has to be bright and vibrant and pop." Listen, colors dictate tone. And Barry's cover is more of the horror aspect of this story. The other one has the vampire, but it's these 2 vibrant women going at each other. Where this is, it's supposed to be grittier. It's supposed to be darker, I think.
Yeah.
And the monochromatic colors just make it gives you that feeling, that vibe. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and the other has a horror element too, but there's more of an action dynamic.
Exactly.
A hero dynamic going on. Stoker and Wells on the cover there, Wells on the left, Stoker on the right, they almost look like they better bring their A game if they're going to stop the madness. They're not there slaying. They're a little afraid of what you're about to find in this book. And our villain, our Dracula, is there in the forefront. Very inspired by Bram Stoker's own description of Dracula, I will add. That's part of what we did. We worked off of the all of the creatures. You know, when I talked about the Morlock that Barry drew, and we showed that, and that's heavily in the first book. That just comes very much from the that comes very much from the Morlocks as described in the book. Here I can show you a beautiful page that we have here. This is, come on, this is just beautiful stuff. This is just
absolutely
beautiful stuff.
I want to let everybody know this is a well-crafted, written story. Again, it's a period piece as well, but don't think it's just some drama. There's action, there's adventure. It's got that Indiana Jones kind of element to it as well. Alan Quartermain kind of thing. There's a lot of action and adventure.
Yeah, there's our time machine splash, our beautiful time travel splash that Barry did. It's very paced out. There's action as soon as all over this story. Every time I turn, there's another beautiful series of pages that Barry did. One of the things that's interesting that you say that, because look, there's this horrific stuff. This is just amazing work Barry did. One of the things that I would, and we even have, there's a giant crabs right out of the future, right out of H.G. Wells's story. So we have quite a lot going on here. But it's interesting you say about the two mediums, writing across the two mediums. All I know, and my training is how to tell a story. But when you go back 400 BC to Aristotle's Poetics, all the way to the present, stories have beginnings, middles, and ends. That's where the words three-act structure comes from. We all expect this, whether you're telling a story about the crazy thing that happened to you at the supermarket, or whether you're telling a story, or writing a screenplay or writing a novel. Everything we expect as a viewer, as a reader, to have a beginning, this is what it's about. A middle, that's the journey of it, and it to end somehow. And so I took that into graphic novels, but I was surprised how many people came to me and a lot of the reviews pointed out how much story there was in it. And then when I would talk to fans at conventions, and I've been to quite a number of conventions now, they're used to so many comic books being delivered by people who know great art, but they're just a series of set pieces, and there really isn't any really major story. Maybe they're following a character, they're watching what a character is doing, but not really following a story, not feeling like they just had a complete experience. And I find that surprising, because I don't know how else to do graphic novels. And it's the same thing in the trilogy that we did with Billy. Each of those stories has a beginning, middle, and end, but kind of like watching a 1-hour drama, Game of Thrones. Just at the end of the first book of the trilogy, it makes you go, oh my God, what? And you want to read the second book of the trilogy and the third book. Same thing here.
It's a sophisticated action set piece as well. It's sophisticated because the story behind it has depth, the characterization, the exposition. Neither one drowns out the other. There's not so much exposition that you feel it's a boring, lagging pace. And it's not this mindless action story that you're like, okay, but I'm not invested in the characters. It's a very nice blend of the two.
Thank you. It was very important to me to make sure that that's what the takeaway was. So I appreciate that.
And of course, with Barry was a great fit for the art, because with his sequential storytelling, his art style, it brought that sophistication, because he's not, and I mean this in a complimentary way, so I hope it comes out that way. It's like I told you with Tarzan and all of, Joe Kubert and all of those books. Your line work, I think, is more detailed, but there's a classy style, if there's a good way to your art, that isn't typical comic book, but yet you can tell a comic book story. You know what I mean? You have that more authentic, classy and style that fits this genre and what you were going for, I think. So I think it was a match made in heaven with the two of you.
Now, Charles Morgan on our comments is asking, is it a great looking art, Barry? Is it traditional art? What is that? How do you respond? Because you guys are more seasoned in comic book world than I am.
Is he drawing it on pencil and paper, or is he doing it digitally?
Yeah, I'm drawing, and then actually the first book I just used a soft pencil, mechanical pencil, and then in Photoshop I just darkened it a little bit so it looked like ink. The second book, I'm going to be inking over my pencils. Those pages that you were showing before is inked, my pencils, and then I'm inking over my own pencil work.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's traditional, traditional.
Very cool.
Medium.
Mm-hmm.
Someday you're gonna part with those pages someday, or you're hanging on to
Of
them?
course, yeah. I mean, if anybody wants them, I guess.
Well, we'll talk
yeah.
about it. Maybe that'll be something we'll offer exclusively
Yeah.
when the Kickstarter kicks in.
Yeah.
But I do ink digitally too. I ink either in Photoshop or a lot of times I'll even use Illustrator if it's character art. I ink things in, quote unquote, ink things in with vectors. So whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And transitioning here, you have a TV deal that is going on. I mean, it's on a pause at the moment, but tell us about that.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We got on the radar of a company called Amasia Entertainment. The president and founder of Amasia is Michael Helfand, and he was the former president of Marvel Studios. So they really sparked to the book and its potential. It has to be the story as is not going to translate exactly for the needs of 1 hour. We're doing it as a series, not as a film, as a series for the streamers: Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, somewhere, Apple, possibly Disney Plus. And so the needs of 1 hour drama. The first book takes place in just a little over 48 hours. Probably the adventure is 48 hours, and there's a build up. So it probably takes place over the course of 3 or 4 days. So that obviously is not going to make for a series. So I've been working with a guy named Adam Simon, who just a brilliant guy who knows all about this period as well. He created the show Salem. He was the showrunner on that, and he just loved the book, and we've been working together really well, rethinking it for the needs of 1 hour television. But all that's on pause. For those who don't know, the Writers Guild of America is on strike because those very people I mentioned, those very companies I mentioned, are not paying their fair share. They're becoming billionaires and everyone else is not. And so we're on our contract renewal with all the producers, all of them. That's how the unions work. And we're the first one in the trenches, before the directors, before the actors. So we always fight the good fight, and then we get disappointed when the other ones step into the arena because they buckle. They're like the Vichy during World War II. We're there like Churchill, and they're like the Vichy. But that means anything I'm doing in the film and TV world through my union is on pause, which means our show is on pause. It's part of the motivation to get back into the roots of this property and go back and do book 2, which I'm excited to be doing, because that stuff is not governed, or I don't have to stop writing anything. I can't be working on TV or film projects for pay for producers. I can work on my own private scripts at home during a strike. So that's what brings us here. So I'm very much looking forward to getting back to that, to the strike ending. But in the meantime, we have Stoker and Wells: The Ashes of Revenge, which we're out here bringing to you and your viewers.
Real quick, Raphael had said that he met Barry and did an interview with him at my show years ago, and it was great to see how far you guys have come with this.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
And Charles was saying it was interesting when more artists starting the pencils in Photoshop. Look, we do what we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
They do. So let me ask you, after this book, what are your plans for Stoker and Wells? Is there a third story? Do you have stories going on for how many books?
Yeah, no, we can keep going. In fact, as I wrote it, I'm certainly not going to spoil it here.
When
but
does War of the Worlds come in?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, War of the Worlds is going to come in for sure. Yes, because my mind has been thinking that way for the purposes of TV. You can't just go in and pitch a pilot. You have to not only pitch a pilot, you have to convince people there's 4 years in this idea. And so that's obviously, I was already thinking about this. From the start, I was thinking about this as sort of a tentpole summer movie series. like I said, Pirates of the Caribbean, the Sherlock Holmes movies. So I was already talking about a trilogy then, and so now we're doing it. We're doing it. Instead of spending $150 million, we're spending a little considerably less, doing it in this form.
Just a little less.
And even though this detours, and that's part of why it's been a little while for us to do a book 2, is because I wasn't quite sure, since the TV version is going in the same starting point, but going a little different direction. We're actually starting a few years earlier, and I won't go into the reasons for that, because people haven't read the book. I talked to the producers and I said, I want to do a book 2. Are you guys cool with that? Because it's going to, again, continue sort of a different path than we're going to go on. And they were like, no, absolutely. The more awareness there is of Stoker and Wells, the better. Everybody knows in the world of comics and book adaptations that the purposes of television are sometimes different. So it's sort of like, it's fun to see what you guys did with the graphic novel. What are the differences in the TV show? What are the similarities? So we're just continuing on the same path we were on with the new book. And it's going to be it's a fun story. There's a lot of story in it. Again, a very contained amount of time it takes place in, not over a lot of time in Victorian England. Although there is a time, as those pages hint, there is a section of this new 60-page book that does take place in the future once again, because Wells does go against orders of Stoker, hop on that machine and go to the future to ideally bring back his love. Whether she'll come with him is another story.
Well, to remind everybody as well, don't wait back on this Indiegogo, but if for whatever reason that's not going to happen, we want to let you know that you can be notified of launch right now. I'm going to put
I'm not sure how this is. I think I can. Is that because we just submitted this for approval?
Oh, you didn't get it yet. Okay, so then you can't. Okay.
Yeah. But keep an eye out on Phil's page. Please, if we're not already Facebook friends, please friend me. I'm the only Stephen Peros on Facebook who is not a realtor. So there's only 2 Stephen Peroses on Facebook. One is a realtor who unfortunately runs triathlons. So it's like, you son of a bitch, I gotta get my face as chiseled as his. But he's a realtor. I'm the guy who writes movies and comic books. There's no other Stephen Peros in all of Facebook. So friend me, and you'll be kept aware of everything that is going on, our launch and so forth. You can always just search Stoker and Wells or my name on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. The campaign will come up as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Raphael. Thank you.
So, Barry, what can we expect to see from you? Any appearances coming up on the East Coast, or any other books you'll be working on, or what's going on with you?
Yeah, I know that I'm going to be going to a couple of shows. I haven't decided which shows I'm going to go to yet on the island. But yeah, and then I'll be busy drawing this book. I also have a show in the fine art vein to prepare for as well. I also do watercolor painting, oil painting. Been doing a lot of landscape painting. I have more. I like to illustrate Russian classics, so that show is something else I'll be preparing. So I'll fill you in on that, and you can maybe post some information about that in case any of your audience is into fine art.
Do you take any commissions at this point or no?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, whatever you want something from Stoker and Wells or whatever, Marvel Universe, DC Universe, whatever. Absolutely. And
if you're not following Barry, it's Barry Orkin. You should definitely go check him out on Facebook and follow both of them, and you can get great art, or even just see some great art on Barry's, when he posts. And of course, if you want to get some original pages from Stoker and Wells, hit him up, talk to him. Stephen, we've been going into everything that you're writing and everything, but tell us again before we head out today, why do we want to read and back this book, both books, and read them? What's the elevator pitch that says this is the campaign to spend your money on?
Well, part of what I want to do with this book is entertain, but I got to say part of it's also about, we have two writers as the leads. I believe writers are heroes. I believe artists are heroes. And if I can actually make them literal physical heroes, to me, that's a whole lot of fun. It's also about stepping into, the theme of this story. Wells couldn't get his act together. His brain was spread so many different directions. He also thought he was on borrowed time. He had been very ill when he was younger. Death's door, and so he was living very recklessly. Comparatively, Stoker, a son of 3 generations of civil servants, his first published book was a guide to how to be a better civil servant. He didn't quite know, he didn't feel like it was okay to be an artist, to be a writer. So but obviously both men did step into the person they were meant to be. And so that's what in the course of my story, it's getting over fear. A lot of us all have to get over some sort of fear, trepidation, the big word no in front of them, either in the form of another person, in the form of society, in the form of little voices they tell inside themselves. I'm not worth it. How can I possibly succeed? So this story takes 2 regular guys who just happen to be talented, like a lot of you guys are who are listening, and says, if you can get past that, you can step into the person you were meant to be. And that's what Stoker and Wells do. So while it's just a fun yarn, it's also about something, and I hope it registers with readers in that way. And it has for people that I've read, including I've had, like 12, 13-year-old girls reading this book. So it's just great saying that they love Nina. They love her power. She steps into her power. The Eloi, for those who know, and they'll learn it from this book, the Eloi are a passive race. They're referred to as cattle. Well, the spell is broken. And Nina steps into her power as well. It's very much about every character, including the villains, stepping into their power and what good people have to do to stop the bad guy who steps into his or her power. So it's very much finding that individual is what the story's about, and while being entertained by vampires and time travel and all sorts of fun in the process.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Guys, I wish you the best of success with this. I look forward to getting past the writer's strike and seeing this on the streaming service. I could say I knew you when, and
Excellent.
you could say who's Phil again, but
Can't talk to Phil.
Yeah, I know Barry. I had him on my show. Anyway, but I'm rooting for you. I'm looking forward to seeing this progress further, and I'm going to tell everybody again, this is an unbiased. I was not paid or for endorsement. I backed the project when the first book came out, and I read it, and I have to tell you, it was an enjoyable read. If you like action adventure that is a little more sophisticated in the sense that the character development, taking real life people and blending their real life story with this wonderful fiction, taking the tales of Dracula and the Time Machine and writing the story in a way that is different yet familiar, but it helps you understand, the characters and where they came with these stories. It's very original. It's creative. It's fun. Barry's artwork is beautiful and professional and matches perfectly the style and the genre. And it's a nice blend of an action yarn, some wonderful exposition and character development, and at the same time, a buddy story. So it's got all the elements that make it a winner. I enjoyed it, and I really highly encourage you all to pick it up and check it out. And as much as I love physical, just remember, anything you can back, even if you have to get the PDF, but back them, support them. This is how great entertainment continues. We can't continue if you don't support it. And if you keep throwing your money at the same garbage and then you're complaining about the same garbage, you only have yourself to blame. So let's come out to some original, wonderful, creative stories. This is one of them, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much, Phil. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will see you in San Diego, Stephen, and I don't know if I will see you, Barry. Hopefully I will, but if not, you really don't live that far. I'm surprised we don't run into each other.
Yeah. Set up a day. Let's set up a day and have a beer or something.
And I still owe you. for those of you who see my Creatorcon logo, that is all Barry. And Barry is a gentleman. Barry is a good man, and I appreciate you. So, guys, much success. Keep going. And you can share to my page anytime you want, the campaign, of course.
Appreciate it.
And any new updates or news, feel free to tag me or share to the page, or even just DM me and I can post it. But you guys, don't sleep on this.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah, we'll get it all out there. Look for our Kickstarter starting within the next, we'll probably kick it off as soon as the Indiegogo closes. But yes, that's starting very soon, which will be just about a week or two from now.
Excellent. But let them finish out strong in Indiegogo. Don't wait for Kickstarter. Why wait? You can do it now.
It's interesting. That was my intention, was to launch on Tuesday once we're approved. And then suddenly people are writing me saying, well, you should not have them competing with each other and let one end start the other. And then your campaign now is a 2-month campaign instead of a overlapping campaign.
I do like the 2-month idea. That's what I do. But I don't think they compete, though, at the same, because to be honest with you, there's a lot of tribalism. Some people only go to Indiegogo. Some people only go to Kickstarter.
That's what I'm learning as I'm doing my outreach. There's some people I'm learning, and I respect that totally. And I'm about to go on our backer emails from Kickstarter, and I don't necessarily want to waste that outreach telling them about an Indiegogo if I know already they like Kickstarter. So I'd rather go to them when I launch Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah, I've had a few people on my campaigns that were strictly, they only go to Indiegogo, but some of them enjoyed it so much they were like, when I didn't go to Indiegogo for the last 2 issues, they were like, well, you're forcing me now to go to Kickstarter. But they did, but begrudgingly. So, yeah, I don't think they necessarily compete. I mean, Billy had done both at the same time. I don't think they compete. They're hitting different crowds. But at the same time, for marketing and promotional reasons, I do think it's good to do them back to back, to extend it to a nice 60-day promotional campaign of the book. So,
well, terrific. Thank you for your advice, and looking forward to moving forward and getting to our goal. And I hope you guys out there can help us share. Please take a look after the show, see what we have to offer. Pledge for some of our perks. Think of it as a pre-order. That's the way I look at these things, and share it share it out to people.
And remember, if you don't, I know where most of you live, and I'll toilet paper your house. So don't make me have to do that.
All right,
guys. Have a great night and much success.
Thanks.
All righty, take care.
Take care.
Bye.
So that was Barry Orkin and Stephen Peros. Again, they are the dynamic duo behind Stoker and Wells, The Ashes of Revenge. That is the sequel to the first book, which was really good. And The Order of the Golden... God, I'm so bad. I'm sorry. But anyway, the first book is there. So you can get both on the campaign right now. The links are in the chat. Please go check it out. I'm very serious about this. It was a really interesting tale. It was really good. And it was very clever. And we need more of that. So that's that. Before we go, real quick, I just want you to show some serious love to my letterer, my friend, Jason Meadows. He has a campaign going on right now on Indiegogo and crowdfunder, mind you. And the book doesn't get, he's terrible at marketing. I'm just going to be straight up about it. He really sucks at marketing. And that's why he's got me. But Tales from Nero's Villain is his third campaign. And I'm not going to bore you with a long diatribe, but I'm just going to tell you right now, this is another cleverly written series. It's in the vein of Astro City, where it's this anthology of different heroes, different characters in each book that are all tied together by this city who has the most heroes in any city of this world. There are some great twists and ironies in his writing. It is a smart superhero tale. Some great characters and designs. I really like Happy Jack, and who actually has a cameo in Tragedy #1, if you can find him. And this is a cleverly well-written book, but as you can see, the campaign is not gaining a lot of traction right now. You all know me. I won't passionately speak on anything unless I truly enjoyed it. and I truly enjoyed the first 6 books of Tales from Nerosville. I've not read these 3, but I have read the first 6, and I own them. They are well written, cleverly written with some twists, and they are interesting and fresh and new. And I really, really, really highly recommend you go check out this campaign and show some love. At the very least, just go look at the campaign, give it a read through. You can get the other 6 issues. And by the way, he's selling everything dirt cheap. His books are not expensive at all, and I just put it in there. So I want you to please go check that out. Jason Meadows, Knuckle Supper Studios. It is Tales from Nerosville Wave 3 with Waves 1 and 2 available as well. It is also on Crowdfunder, which is right here. Or Fund My Comic, I'm sorry. Not Crowdfunder, forgive me. Fund My Comic, which is Discord, I guess. I'm not familiar with this platform yet. He funded here, but there. Let me show the trailer real quick.
Tales from Nerosville is a superhero anthology series where there is no singular star of the book. Rather, Nerosville itself, readers are introduced to a plethora of interesting and unique heroes and villains. Happy Jack, the wisecracking hero with a permanent smile. Lord Sinisterio, a dictatorial would-be world conqueror with a small army at his disposal. Brouhaha, a clinically insane young hero with a heart of gold. King Droog, one of Nerosville's most feared and dangerous underworld bosses. Airball and Lightning Doug, the lovable losers of the hero community. You can't help but root for them. Boardwalk, Alistair Point Pierce's living embodiment of retribution, and many, many more. If you enjoy quality comics full of humor and violence, action and adventure with twists and turns, you're going to love Tales from Nerosville. Well written and beautifully illustrated, TFN is an old school comic made the way comics should be made. So jump in on the ground floor and get the first 9 books while first prints are still available. And thank you for supporting indie comics.
As you can see, he's put a lot of heart into this, a lot of great character design. He's created a world. So join this world. Come check it out. I ask all my friends who back my campaigns, we've backed yours, support him. He deserves it. He's a good man. He's talented. He's hardworking, and these are solid quality books. Go support him either on Fund My Comic or on Indiegogo, whichever you're more comfortable with. And let's help this guy, Jason Meadows, really get his books to life, because we all know how hard this struggle is. Okay, so let's reward him, please. Let's help him out. And again, you're walking away with a quality book. It's not like you're just doing charity here. You're walking away with a quality book. All right. Lastly, I'm going to let you know, Tragedy Chapter 5 had ended on Kickstarter. If you did not get a chance to back, if you don't use Kickstarter and you only own to go to Indiegogo, we are back. We are going to launch on Indiegogo very soon. I will give you updates. Tragedy 5 coming to Indiegogo. I will have an Indiegogo exclusive cover, and I'll see if I could come up with some other goodies. And we really want to see you come over to the Indiegogo and support Tragedy Chapter 5 as well. And then Tragedy trade paperback, and we've got some doozy covers coming for that. All right, that's about it. I appreciate you all for coming out and hanging out with me and my guests, Barry and Steven. Go check out Stoker and Wells, again, the sequel to the first book. And support indie comics, support creativity, support fresh new ideas, and let's keep creators alive. All right. Oh, and by the way, Charles W. Morgan, if you want to get a really good detective story, his campaigns are over, but reach out to Charles W. Morgan. He's in the chat to try and purchase Cold Cutter issues 1 and 2. Crime drama, detective story, a lot of action, a lot of gunfights, car chases. Great stuff, man. It kind of reminds me of the old 70s. What was that movie with the famous car chase and Gene Hackman? Oh, my Lord. I don't remember. Oh, God. Anyway, you get the point. I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.